Hello, and welcome back. I'm really hoping this works because my little microphone was flashing red, and I'm hoping I don't have to re-record again, but we'll see. Fingers crossed. I haven't recorded in a while, and some people were commenting on my TikTok asking where I've been. Um, it's just been very, very busy recently. I've been very, very busy at work. I went to Houston to go to MD Anderson to get a second opinion. I've been planning for my trip to Spain, which is literally, I'm leaving on Monday, which is crazy. Like 5 days, 4 days? So close. The time flew by. When I booked this trip, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so far away. And then it really just snuck up on me. I feel like that's kind of the theme of this year. It's just like time is just flying by so fast. And it's shocking. It's always shocking. But anyway, I wanted to just give updates and just chit chat with you guys. I don't have a particular topic for this video. I just wanted to let you guys know what I've been up to, talk about my experience at MD Anderson and the importance of getting a second opinion in general, and talk about my trip to Spain and what I'm going to be doing there and all sorts of other stuff. So, first off, just wanted to talk about my trip to Houston when I went to MD Anderson. It went well overall, as well as it could have. The experience itself was very, very difficult and very, very stressful and overwhelming. I had several breakdowns and continued to have breakdowns when I got back and was home in LA. I think just because for me, I deal with things by disassociating, especially something as big as this. I feel like whenever I talk about cancer or anything, it doesn't feel like I'm talking about myself. It feels like I'm talking about a friend or something that's going through this. Like it really, truly does not feel like what I'm saying applies to myself. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced that in relation to trauma. I feel like it's a pretty common response to traumatic events is to just disassociate and kind of numb yourself from the feelings. And I feel like that's what I've been doing since I was diagnosed. But then there are these specific times where I'm like confronted with the reality more harshly, and then I get overwhelmed with emotions. Like it happened this time. I feel like it happened whenever I've gone an MRI. I'm like, oh shoot, like this is me. I'm actually going through this right now. And it's a very surreal experience that I feel like just overwhelms me with emotions in general. So that was kind of how I felt in Houston. It felt very surreal, and I think I just felt very overwhelmed with emotions. The doctor that I met was really, really nice and really, really knowledgeable. He basically only treats cholangiocarcinoma, which is the cancer that I have, and it is a very rare cancer, so it's hard, I would say, to find a doctor that specializes in it or that only treats cholangiocarcinoma patients. So he's very knowledgeable. He has a ton of funding from the foundation to study cholangiocarcinoma. So he's kind of a pro, which is great because I felt like I was in great hands. I felt like I was seeing the best person possible that I could. And so I got an MRI, I got a CAT scan, I got a ton of blood work. And if you watch any of my TikToks, you know that this was a huge struggle because I have a port in my arm, and most chemo patients have the port in their chest. Um, and a port is just what is used to do infusions for chemo because it makes it a lot easier to access your veins, because chemo basically kind of freezes up your veins over time, kind of destroys your veins because the chemicals are so harsh. So most chemo patients have ports. My hospital is unique in that it puts them in your arm, and most hospitals put it in your chest. I'm not sure why they do that, but I personally really like having it in my arm because it's a lot less noticeable. I don't really think about it too often, I guess. Anyway, so I have a port in my arm, which is how I've gotten chemo. And I also, for context, have really, really small veins. I've always had really hard veins to find. Um, and so having a port is extra useful. But for some reason, and they didn't tell me this in advance, MD Anderson has to verify your port before they can access it. And that wasn't something that they could do on the spot. So when I went down to get blood work, then I had three nurses surrounding me, and they, guys, I am not exaggerating, I'm not kidding. They poked me at least 15 to 20 times because they would get a little bit of blood from a vein and then it would stop. And then I'd have to switch veins and it would stop and they would switch and they would switch. They tried all over both of my arms, on the tops of my hands, on the backs of my arms, everywhere. And they felt so bad. They were like, I swear this never happens. Like, you just have really, really bad veins and you're someone who really does need a port to be accessed. And that was a horrible experience. It was painful. It was just really hard because I was trying to be strong and I was trying to be like, it's okay, because I didn't want them to feel bad about having to poke me so much. But so I was trying to hold it together, but I was just so stressed out and I was like, oh no, they're not going to be able to get the blood. Like, they're not going to be able to run these tests that they need to run. And they ended up getting most of the vials filled, but some of them they couldn't. And then we ended up just calling it a day. So that was my first very stressful experience. Then I went to go get a CAT scan, and the same thing happened because they have to use an IV to inject contrast to be able to do a CAT scan with and without contrast. I'm saying CAT, I'm wondering if it was actually a CT scan. Okay, one of those two. It doesn't really matter. But it's with and without contrast, so they inject um, iodine into your veins so that it lights up the area and they can see better what they're trying to look at. So again, they couldn't use my port. The nurse tried to use my IV. He could not get the IV in. Like, it was not flushing, it was not working properly. He ended up sending me over to this other department and he was like, you'll have to go to this department so they can put the IV in. I went there. They were like, our first appointment's in 3 hours. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't do that. Like, I'd been there all day and I had already drank this drink that I was supposed to have before getting the scan. So I was like, I just drank this whole drink. Like, I need this to be done now. And he's like, nope, sorry. I start bawling my eyes out. And my mom is here with me. And I've never been good at relying on someone else to comfort me. So I was even more stressed out because I didn't want to overwhelm my mom or anything like that. Um, and so I like went into a corner and cried by myself. And then I was like, okay, I can figure this out. So I went back downstairs to the CAT scan, CT scan, and was like, please just have a nurse try again. They had a nurse try again. It hurt so, so bad because it was a big needle to for the IV, but she like jabbed it in there in my forearm. She got it. And then I got the scan and it was also just the most painful experience ever because the IV, like, I don't know if my veins were tired or whatever because of the blood draws, but it like wasn't fully in the vein or something. And so when they put the contrast in, it burned so, so bad, guys. Like, actually, I thought I was going to die for a minute. And it also, specifically with liver scans, the contrast they use has to go like extra fast. So they were like, you're gonna feel like really, really hot and like have a head rush when we inject it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I've had these before. It's fine. No, this was so different. It was so painful, so extreme. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. I got through it. This sounds very dramatic, but it was actually just one of the worst days ever. So I'm sorry if I'm complaining. But So I got that done. We had been there all day at this point. We finally leave, and they're like, you need to get an MRI tomorrow. And I was like, oh, Mom, like I can't come back. I can't do it because it was with contrast again, so they would have to find a vein. But I drank a ton of water and it ended up not being that bad. And I got the MRI and everything. And then I left and I went home to LA, and my mom went home to Virginia and didn't hear for a few days. And then the doctor calls me and he was like, you're all clear, no new tumors or anything. We're going to present your case to the liver board, but we don't see anything concerning at this point, and we recommend stopping immunotherapy because I was having some side effects to immunotherapy, like just getting really sick. I was in the hospital a couple times with colitis, and my white blood cell counts are also very low and have been very low for a long time. So he thinks that that was an immune response. And the other thing he said or suggested was to go on a chemo pill for maintenance because basically with this cancer, it has such a high recurrence rate that it is fairly uncommon to just stop doing everything. So they kind of, to be aggressive, they would like to institute a maintenance plan. And so he suggested a chemo pill, which I would not mind at all, especially after going through actual chemo and all of those side effects. Just taking a pill with minimal side effects, I wouldn't really care, to be honest. Um, and I don't know, I felt really weird, really, really weird and anxious after he told me that. And I don't know if it was leftover anxiety from going to Houston and from dealing with all of that. It probably was a lot to do with that. But I also feel like I am struggling a lot with this liminal space, this in between gray area of not being in remission because I still technically have cancer after surgery, but I don't have any tumors or anything that needs chemotherapy because it is such a small margin of positive cancer cells that are left in my liver. So I'm just in this weird gray area that I feel like I can't celebrate or feel stable or safe in saying that I don't have cancer, but I also am not actively fighting per se cancer. So it's a very hard thing to mentally grapple with. And I don't know, I think I would almost rather just have like some sort of concrete plan. Like when I talked to my therapist about this, who specializes with cancer patients, she was saying it's very common for patients who are done with chemo to feel very overwhelmed and lost and anxious because you go from having this safety net and protection of going to the hospital every week and having the nurses and getting treatment, and it feels like you're making positive steps towards a solution and towards remission. And now that I don't have that, I feel like very lost and kind of just unsure of what the future holds and what I'm supposed to do with myself and my life. So it is a very overwhelming experience, and I am very much still grappling with it. I do feel a lot better now that I'm like a week or two out. And I went to see my oncologist here this week as well. And he agreed with the oncologist in at MD Anderson, and they're going to discuss if they want me to do the pill or not. But my stance is that I would rather take the most aggressive approach possible, um, just because I don't want to take a laissez-faire approach and like have it come back. I would rather just be aggressive and try to keep it at bay for as long as possible, if that makes sense. So that is my stance on it. And I'm feeling a lot better now. And even though nothing necessarily changed from my experience there, I do think it's very, very important nonetheless to get the peace of mind of a second opinion, no matter what your situation is, and but especially if it's a situation where you're dealing with something that's more rare or there are less proven ways to combat the disease you're dealing with. Um, like for instance, in my case, is there was not a I was not seeing a professional in cholangiocarcinoma. So finding one was very much a way to gain peace of mind and to feel better about the plan that we were working on and working towards. And I think for anyone, it can provide you with the peace of mind and your family with the peace of mind that you're seeing the best possible person and you're getting the best possible care. Even if they don't end up changing your plan at all, even if they end up agreeing with whatever you're currently doing, you still can know that you're doing everything possible to potentially achieve remission or be as healthy as you can. And I even think that that extends to like seeing a holistic doctor, or even if you saw another local doctor at a different hospital, like it doesn't need to be necessarily going to a MD Anderson or some specialist. I think even just seeing a holistic doctor and, or a nutritionist and gaining outside perspective and taking a, I guess, multifaceted approach to curing yourself and potentially curing your body, I think is very beneficial. I have been trying to look more into the holistic approach, not instead of chemotherapy or traditional medicine, but in addition to, because it can't hurt. And I know that there are a lot of studies and proven benefits of certain nutrition, certain diets, certain um, just extra things that you can do on top of traditional medicine to help strengthen your immune system and help strengthen your body and just become a healthier version of yourself. So I think that no matter what, it is always worth it to just hear what other people have to say. And wrapping that chapter up, because I don't want to talk too much about that. I just wanted to explain my situation and explain, I think, my stance on the importance of getting a second opinion and things like that. Onto a more fun topic. I'm going to Spain next week for almost 3 weeks. I have been wanting to travel for a while, but I couldn't because of chemo. Obviously, I had to, have that set schedule, go to the hospital, and I was just too nervous to leave for a long time or anything like that. And so now that I'm done with chemo and I also have a 2 week summer break from my work, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to travel by myself and kind of just get out and experience a new culture, experience something different, live my life, because ultimately that is all I've wanted to do for the past, year, almost year at this point. I was diagnosed, is live life to the fullest extent. And I really don't want to lose that urge just because I am doing well and I'm healthy. I am definitely fearful that I'm going to lose that desire because I think that when you're faced with something life threatening, it can spur you to want to do a lot of things, but then it's very easy sometimes to go back to what's comfortable and to forget that life is short and that anything can happen. And so I've really been trying to hold on to that and push myself to do things that I've always wanted to do. For instance, I also just got my second Yoda Star Wars yoga certification this past weekend. I had my first certification that I got last year, and then I've been wanting to get certified in this other format called Yoga Sculpt, which is basically yoga with weights. It's the one that I take all the time, so I really enjoy it. But I was afraid to do it, and I was also like, it's a big time commitment. But then the perfect opportunity came up, and I was like, you know what, Sunny, just do it, just see what happens. And I did the shortened, intensive version of the training and passed, which is amazing. And so I don't know, I'm just trying to do things that I've always wanted to do and not debate them in my head or go back and forth or weigh my decisions, really just go for what my gut is telling me to do. And I think that's just the best way that you can live. And so that was a tangent, but I'm going to Spain next week. I'm going all over. I'm going to Madrid, Barcelona, Granada, Seville, and my mom is going to join me for 5 or 6 days, um, which will be good. But I'm very excited to just get out of the country, again, experience a new culture. I did take Spanish for 6 years, so hopefully speak some Spanish, try some good Spanish food, and just do something outside of my comfort zone because I also feel like it's very easy to stick to what's comfortable and not push yourself. And I think that this will really be an experience where I'll have to be uncomfortable and push myself in order to grow and become a better version of myself. And obviously, you don't need to leave the country to do that or do anything crazy. But I think that putting yourself in uncomfortable situations that are safe, not saying that you should do unsafe things or anything that's detrimental to you or your health, but to put yourself in situations sometimes that you're not familiar with or that are outside of your routine in order to learn more about yourself and see where you can grow and where you can learn. I think that that's a very important thing. So I'm excited to push myself and explore on my own and see where life takes me. And I didn't want this to be too long of an episode. I just wanted to come on here, give some updates, explain what's been going on, and hopefully hit the ground running when I'm back with making new episodes and having guests on, which I'm really excited about. I have one lined up that I'm very excited about, um, that you guys will see. But yeah, have more guests on, just talk about more things that I'm passionate about. I think I've just been very stressed, but now I will have the time to hopefully plan and figure out exactly what I want to talk about and what I want to share with the world or with you guys. So, thank you once again for listening. I hope you guys have a great rest of, I don't know when this is going to come out, rest of the month. Great summer, I guess. And I will talk to you guys when I'm back from Spain. Bye.